Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's high noon on the Once Upon a Time in Spaghetti Western podcast. I'm Jay Jennings.
I'm Tom Betts.
And we have a special guest today, and he's riding in now. He's hooking up his horse outside the saloon. Will you please welcome Clark Hotchkiss, everybody?
Good evening.
Hey, Clark.
All right, I've never ridden a horse in my life, Jay, but it made me sound kind of macho. Thank you.
He ambled into town.
We're honored to have you here on our special show that we're dedicated to a great actor who's I think, appreciated in the genre, and that would be Craig Hill, which is today's topic. And you, of course, got to interview Craig, a couple years back?
Many years back. This was back in the mid-1990s when I was doing the Blood, Money and Vengeance fanzine. So this was quite some time ago.
Oh, awesome! And you'll be sharing some of your stories during when you interviewed him, and we'll be going over his career, mostly his spaghetti western career. We're gonna, we'll do show a couple posters from some of his early work, but we're mostly here to talk about his spaghetti westerns. This is. I guess, show 39? We're almost at show 40.
39.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We've got some great interviews planned up also after this one, so keep watching the show. We want to welcome you all in Facebook and YouTube land, and also on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify and Anchor. So thank you for joining us. Clark is the author of a book called Renegade Westerns. Why don't you tell us a little about that?
Right. So Renegade Westerns, I'm actually the co-author of the book with Kevin Grant, who, as you all probably know, wrote Any Gun Can Play. So Renegade Westerns is specifically about American Westerns and what people would probably, or scholars would regard as revisionist Westerns. So it starts with the Oxbow incident, and it goes through Anthony Mann Westerns and acid Westerns. So anything really that sort of bucks the trend of the traditional Western. We've done essays on as many of these films as we could find. And we've also got an appendix at the back for Westerns with female leads, and one with an appendix with noir Westerns as well.
Oh, okay. Of course, El Topo's in there, right?
El Topo is not. It's not. No. We concentrate specifically on American productions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think it's Mexican, isn't it? I think
that's one of it. It's a favorite of mine. That's why I mentioned it.
Yes.
So it's a great book. If you haven't gotten it, please go out and get it. It's a good, enjoyable read. So let's talk about today's topic, and that is the one and the only Craig Hill. And Craig Hill, I think would you say he was one of the top stars of the genre, Tom? What do you think?
Yeah, he's listed. If you want to start mentioning stars of spaghetti westerns, he's right in there. I think what sets him back a bit is he's laid back. He's a laid back actor. He's not like Kinski, where he takes over a scene, or he's not like Garko, where he created a character and carried it on. He's more of like the everyday man who gets in these situations, and then he's either got a skill or he uses his wits to defeat the bad guys. Yeah, but yeah, he's in the top. I'd say he's in the top 10.
Well, he's not as. I mean, he's made about 15 or 16 of them, so it's not as prolific as a Robert Woods or someone who's in the mid-20s. But yeah, you're right. He does play the everyman who just seems to stumble upon a problem and then handles it. What do you think, Clark?
Yeah, I think he does. He's very good at playing these sort of like you say, these everymen. Sometimes he might be a bounty hunter. Sometimes he might even be a family man. Some of his later roles were, shall we say, they were in these sort of sub-Trinity comedies. So you can also plot a good timeline of the spaghetti western genre from these sort of Spanish melodramas at the beginning through the tough guy westerns in the mid to late 60s and into some of these sort of quite puerile comedies that came about in 72, 73.
Right. We'll briefly talk about that later. But yeah, he did start off playing kind of the rugged. I think in most films he had almost a full beard or a 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He also started these Italian or European westerns when he was just about 40 years old. So he did have a little bit of he looked a bit weathered when he first started them. So he certainly had that look that fitted the genre very well.
Oh, no, that's a good point, because a lot of spaghetti western stars started early. Maybe it was their first film, or they were young in their mid-20s, like a Clint or a Franco Nero.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're right. He was rugged, and he had, I guess, a little bit of work. But what makes him interesting, I think, and you two could comment, is he's one of the few stars who was born in Los Angeles and then moved to Italy and made his films there, as opposed to staying there for a while looking for work.
And never came back, like Clark mentioned the other day. He didn't come back.
This is it. It'd be interesting to know if any of the viewers can think of any other American actor who starred in spaghetti westerns who remained in Europe. He became something of an adopted European in the end.
That's right.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And so he never, did he ever come back to the States for any American role? He just stayed in Europe the whole time?
I'm not entirely sure if he did any small roles in American productions, but he was certainly acting in Europe until well into the 90s.
Right. I would say if he was in an American production, it was filmed in Europe. He didn't come back to the States to make a TV appearance or a film in the States. They were filmed over in Spain, if he was in any at all.
Right.
Wouldn't you say? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Clark, when you interviewed him, what year was that?
Well, I think it's probably about 97.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
And you said that he was living in Barcelona at the time?
Yeah, he lived in Barcelona with his wife, Teresa Gimpera, who was an actress, of course. I met him the first time I met him, and I spent an evening just hanging out with him. He got me tickets to go and see Barcelona play football, which was really, really generous of him. And then the next day we did the interview, and I went back to Barcelona the following year, and I just dropped him a line, and we met up for a few cervezas and a bit of a knees up. He was a really, really genuinely warm-hearted guy.
At the time, he wasn't in the best of health, was he?
At that time, he was full of vitality. He was really, really good fun, and I do know that later on he had a stroke and he wasn't particularly well, which is very sad. But the time I met him, he was full of fun. He was very charming, a bit flirtatious as well with the ladies, but charming with it. You know, he was a really, really good person to spend time with.
Right. And speaking of the ladies, we have a picture of his lovely wife.
There. Yes, of course. So he met Teresa while they were filming Black Box Affair, which is a sort of spy espionage movie. That was 1966, and he met her on the set there. And I think they were in and out of each other's orbit for much of the 70s and 80s, but they eventually married, I think, in 1990.
Yeah, it's funny when you read the bios on him. They said they met in 66, and soon thereafter were married. They weren't married.
I love that.
Years
Soon
later,
thereafter.
No. She was married and had 3 kids. So I think that was one of the reasons she wanted to wait until they got out of the house. But yeah, you're right, Clark. it was 1990 when they finally married.
She kind of looks like Stella Stevens a little bit there.
There, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Barbara
she's
Eden.
unusual as well for a Spanish actress because she was, unless her hair was dyed, she was blonde, but she was from Catalonia in the northeast of Spain, which is where Barcelona is, and I think she was quite a star there, and locally as well. I mean, she's had film credits right up until about 2017, 2018, so she's obviously still quite popular to one degree or another in her home country.
Oh, okay, cool. So when we're going to move on to basically discuss his spaghetti westerns, even though he made a ton of other kind of films as well, but obviously we don't have the time, and plus the title of the show is Spaghetti Western Podcast. But we will touch upon, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
But we will touch upon 2 early films that he was in before that. But I think before we get into that, we'll give a little bio background on Mr. Hill. Tom?
Okay, Craig Hill Fowler was born in Los Angeles, California on March 5th, 1926. He began his film career as a contract star for 20th Century Fox, beginning with Cheaper by the Dozen in 1950. He also appeared in Sam Fuller's Fixed Bayonets in 1951, as well as a key role opposite Kirk Douglas in the 1951 crime drama Detective Story. He then appeared in John Ford's What Price Glory in 52, and after leaving Fox, he co-starred in Universal's The Black Shield of Falworth in 1954, followed by several TV appearances. He is best known for co-starring in the Desilu Studios TV series Whirlybirds from 1957 to 1960, playing P.T. Moore opposite veteran actor Kenneth Tobey. In the 1960s, he moved to the United States to Spain, where he starred in 16 spaghetti westerns. In 1990, Hill wed Spanish fashion model and actress Teresa, and it's pronounced Himpera, his co-star in the 1966 film Black Box Affair. Along with his wife, they ran a shop in Begur, where they served American sandwiches and ice cream cones. Hill died on April 21st, 2014, at the age of 88 in Barcelona. We also want to mention his wife, Teresa. She was born Teresa Himpera Flacour in Igualada, Barcelona, Spain. She began as a model for TV and cinema and debuted in the cinema in 1965 with a role of Gim in The Left-Handed Fate. Working not only in Spain, but France and Italy as well, she was the winner in 1969 of the title European Lady and Miss Europe in 1971. She was married to Octavio Sarcenadas and had 3 children with him. She met Craig Hill when they appeared together in The Black Box Affair in 1966, but they didn't get married until 1990. Teresa appeared in 4 Euro Westerns, none of them with Craig Hill. Wanted with Juliana Gemma in 1967. $20,000 for 7 with Brett Halsey in 1969. The Legend of Frenchy King with Brigitte Bardot and Claudia Cardinale in 1971. And Those Dirty Dogs in 1973 with Johnny Garco and Stephen Boyd. They did appear together in 1974 in Creation of the Damned, also known as Refuge of Fear.
Yeah. So Refuge of Fear is this sort of very intense post-nuke drama where they're all stuck in this one room. I think Patty Shepard is in that as well.
Right.
Very intense little drama, and they're all very good in it. So it's an oddity, but worth seeking out.
Okay. Let's before we get to his spaghetti westerns, Clark, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Black Shield of Falworth?
Okay, well, I haven't seen the Black Shield of Falworth.
Oh.
That's with Tony Curtis. No.
Did you talk to Craig about that at all?
No, I talked to Craig about his the films with Sam Fuller, his work with Sam Fuller and John Ford, and his what he learned from these sort of very gruff American directors before he went off to Spain, and also what he learned from other actors as well. So how well prepared these other actors were. And that's what he brought with him. When he finally went to Europe, of course, he became a leading man. In the American movies, of course, he was a supporting actor or just did bit part roles.
Right. Well, then let's talk about before we get to the spaghetti westerns. Let's talk about the Whirlybirds. Tom, did you see that when it was on TV?
I saw it a few times, yes. And when they say Whirlybirds, they're talking about the early helicopters with a frame and a bubble that they would sit in, and they were basically hired for anything that needed them, firefighting, rescues, all kinds of stuff. It was on for like 3 years, so it was a pretty successful TV show. I mentioned to you guys, my friend Don Bruce, he actually bought the Whirlybird. I don't know if they only had one. I doubt it. They probably had 2 or 3 that they used in the series, but he did buy one of the Whirlybirds in the series. And when they had his memorial service, they actually came and they gave rides in the helicopter. So that was quite a thrill to see that from way back in the 60s or the 50s. Yep.
Yeah. So the Whirlybirds was just these 2 guys with their helicopter getting into scrapes, wasn't it? Getting into little
adventures. Would they put out fires and stuff?
Yeah, they worked in fires. They rescued hikers that got stranded in the mountains where they couldn't get a car or a truck in there. All kinds of, rescue people off the top of buildings that were on fire. All kinds of adventures like that.
Oh,
they would be hired.
I think he's probably well known to a lot of American audiences, maybe more so than spaghetti westerns.
Oh, yeah.
So let's move on to I guess Craig Hill's first spaghetti western, and that would be Hands of a Gunfighter.
Well, I'll go real quick and just give you a synopsis. It was made in '65. It was a Spanish-Italian co-production, also known as Gunman's Hands, Hands of a Gunman, Hands of a Gunfighter. Starred Craig Hill, Gloria Milan, Carlos Romero Marchant. As basically a reformed gunman returns to his earlier life when the Castle brothers shoot his friends, threaten to expose his identity, and separate him from his son. So Clark will give us a synopsis of this.
Yeah, so the actual Spanish title is Ocaso de un Pistolero, and Ocaso means sunset. So it's almost like the decline or the fall of a gunfighter in its more sort of Spanish translation. And it's a really good example of an early Marchant film. So it's a sort of tragic melodrama. The tone's very dark, so it begins with a child actually being shot. And the one thing about some of these early Marchant films is they are technically really excellent films, really sharp photography. This one's shot in the central Spanish region of Hoyo de Mananeras or Colmenar Viejo, which I think is where the first Dollars film was shot.
Northern Spain.
Yeah. So there's lots of really interesting characters, and Marchant fleshes them all out. There's even a John Ford style town dance in it. It's a very good film. Craig is very good. He really shows off his acting chops in this as a man who basically has lost everything that he loves, and he starts to seek revenge.
Right. He seems to always seek revenge. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he proved himself in this film. He showed that he could do it, and from there he managed to bag all these other Western roles.
Right, including his next film, Taste of Killing.
Indeed.
Taste of Killing is also known. Italian title is Per il gusto di uccidere. It's For the Taste of Killing, or A Taste of Killing. It was made in '66. It's an Italian-Spanish film co-production. Directed by Tonino Valeri, who we all know. Stars Craig Hill, George Martin are the 2 leads. Some great supporting cast members. And it's about a guy named Lanky Fellow who's played by Hill. He's a typical cynical spaghetti western hero. He likes to earn his living as a bounty hunter. He observes valuable transports of money or gold, but when they are robbed, he doesn't intervene. He follows the robbers and then brings the loot back to collect the insurance money. When his job brings him in conflict with the notorious outlaw Gus Kennebec, that's Martin, he has personal reasons to protect the money, as Kennebec was once responsible for the death of Lanky's brother.
Yeah, Lanky Fellow is another title of the film.
That's what they call him. I like this one because he can't read. which you don't think of a hero that he's illiterate. He basically has to have someone read the wanted posters for him, and then he memorizes the faces.
Yeah, he just sits on a mountaintop and shoots.
He's got the scope, yeah.
Yeah. For me, this is sort of his first spaghetti western proper. So it has that soundtrack with the Dwayne Eddy twang to it. It's got the Almeria locations in this one. He's not particularly lanky, so why they call him Lanky Fellow, I don't know. I think
really
Craig was about 5'7".
And that's being generous.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but he certainly wasn't a particularly lanky man. But it's a good, tough, watchable performance from him. He's not a particularly likable character. If anything, he's probably more cynical than Joe or Manco from the Leone films. He uses the rifle with the gun sight, to heighten his odds. So that's one thing. But it's a really good-looking film, really good supporting cast. Radar Asimov's in it. George Martin's excellent. George Wang is in it. It's even got an early role for Olga Karlatos, who was in Keoma later, and she's the lady who gets her eye gouged out in Zombie Blood Eaters. Yeah,
memorable scene.
Yes.
So let's move on to Tom, the next film, which is one that I'm not too familiar with. Rick and John Conquer the West. What's that all about?
Well, I'm going to have Clark talk about that. I asked him before the show if he had seen this one, because this is the only one of Craig Hill's I have not seen.
Clark, before you go in, I think this is one of those Wiesen titles, right?
It's the what?
What's that guy's name, Tom, who sometimes is a little inaccurate with his info?
Tom Weiser?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's called Rick and Gian a la Conquista del West, so the translation is Rick and John Conquer the West.
Yes.
67 Italian, directed by Osvaldo Civarani.
But who's seen it, Tom? Who's seen it?
Well, Craig's seen it. That's why he needs to talk about it, because I haven't seen it.
You mean Clark?
I was say Craig Clark.
Craig Clark has seen it.
It was supposedly it's about during the Civil War, a Northern Army officer hides gold meant to purchase horses and weapons in the wagon's wheels. Unfortunately, the journey is more complicated than expected when the two naive drivers sell the wheels to an Indian and the wagon gets attacked by Confederate troops.
Yes.
So Clark will give you the rest of the info that he knows since he's seen it.
It's hilarious. So you've got two guys. You've got Riccardo Minigio, who was from Turin, and Gian Fabio Bosco, who was from Florence. They were a cabaret act who got into films. They were very much in the Franco and Ciccio mold. So if you're ever going to watch this, expect lots of mugging and uninventive slapstick. One of the most hilarious jokes is that they have a goldfish called Moby Dick.
That's hilarious.
It is. I thought I'd bring that one along to spice the show up. But Craig's in it. He's quite dapper. He's quite, he's fairly good in it. He's the only thing in the film that sort of links this particular film to the sort of spaghetti westerns we're used to. It really is a hard film to get through. They bring nothing to the table when it comes to slapstick humor. All the jokes are poor. The film's uninspiring.
Is that kind of like 2 cans of beans, a karate player, and an Atari player?
Karate fists and beans.
Oh, okay.
So Civarani went on to direct 2 Sons of Trinity with Franco and Ciccio, but I think I'll pass on that one.
Yes, please do. Those guys are banned from this show.
Okay, well, I think you got their distant cousins just there, so we'll move on, shall we?
So let's move right along to the next film, which I'm actually a big fan of, and that's Adios Hombre.
Adios Hombre.
Yeah, I think you guys know it as another title, but I know it as Adios
also
Hombre.
Known as Seven Pistole per un Massacro.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is 7 pistols for a massacre is what I call it. It's 67 Italian-Spanish, directed by Mario Cano. Stars Craig Hill, Giulia Rubini. Of course, our favorite Eduardo Fajardo's in it. And another favorite, Piero Lully. And then for comic relief, Roberto Camardiel. But it's basically about Tiny and his gang try to rob a bank, but the safe is empty. Waiting for the announced gold transport, they hold the whole town captive. Amongst them is Will Flaherty, that's Craig Hill, who has escaped from prison to prove his innocence. So Clark can fill us in on the rest.
All right.
I don't know why we keep doing that. I'm sorry, Clark. You can fill us in on the rest.
No, that's all right, John. So, Kayano is a bit of an ace director for these B action films. He directed Train for Durango, Shanghai Joe, and some really good quality crime films. Craig plays this wrongly imprisoned fella who comes back to town to find those responsible for the crime. And then the gang arrives in town, as Tom said. So it sets up a bit of like a Desperate Hours type situation in the town. Fiado is particularly unctuous as the gang leader. Now, is he Tiny or Tilly? I'm not really sure.
I've got both Tilly and Tiny, so it must be different releases.
Yeah. Pierre Lully is very good. He's a very malicious villain in it as well. A bunch of dancing girls turn up at one point, all saying they're trained ballerinas, and then proceed to perform the can-can in the saloon. Yeah. So I don't know what it is with spaghetti westerns and the can-can. This seems to happen a lot in the genre. So no, it's a good film, great cast, great premise, and lots of action. Yeah, it's great. It's good.
No,
fun.
I enjoy it. And you're right, Tom. The other title, what was it again? $7,000 for a Massacre? What is
$7, 7 Pistols for a Massacre.
Right. Good title as well. I don't know. For some reason, I just like Adios, Hombre. I like that. I don't know, for some reason. So anyway, let's move on to his next film, which is a great title for an adult picture. And but anyway, there's just some cool posters of him. It's Craig fighting another guy next to a molten lava lake. I don't know, but Bury Them Deep is actually a very good film.
Yep, Ultimo Sangue. The Italian title is 68 Italian, directed by John Bird, who's actually Paola Mofa, and it stars Craig Hill as Captain Cleve Norton, Tori Mani. The guy he's saying he's fighting with is Ken Wood, which is Giovanni Cianfriglia, plays a character named Billy Gunn. And it's basically about Captain Cleve Norton is ordered by a superior officer to recover 2 shipments of stolen Army payroll gold. Cleve enlists the help of Ted Hunter, a condemned prisoner whom he has released. They soon discover that 2 different gangs are responsible for the robberies. And I think the best part of the whole movie, Clark, is the fight at the end. I mean, they really go at it, and it's pretty brutal.
Yes, yeah, and Craig is very good as Norton, the bounty hunter, who rescues Ettore Mani's character from the gallows in the same way as the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly setup.
Right.
And quite a lot of the early part of the film borrows heavily from that, with there's sort of a deadly trek across the dunes as well in the film. There's some ballsy lead performances. The villains are good. Ken Wood. There's also a guy called Francesco Santovetti, who plays this sort of bandit revolutionary guy called Cordero. And I don't know much about Santovetti, but he looks a lot like Roman Polanski in Chinatown. There's good use of the bank as well for a few dollars more, and in fact they blow the side wall out of that bank. So I would have thought that that particular part of the film set would have been rebuilt many times.
I think even today, when they show it, you can still see where the light angles are. You can still see where the explosions were.
Yes,
they patched it up, but the paint doesn't quite match.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a good film. It's got a good dramatic tragic ending. It's not a classic, but it's quite beefy. The
tension keeps building as it gets to the end. Yep.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next Craig Hill film, which is actually my favorite Craig Hill film, and it's also one of my favorite posters, 15 Scaffolds for the Killer, and there's the artwork right there.
Yep.
And tell us about this one, Tom.
Quindici Forche per un assassino. which is the Italian title, 15 Scaffolds for a Murderer or 15 Scaffolds for a Killer, to 68 Italian Spanish, directed by Nunzio Malasoma. Stars Craig Hill as Billy Mack, George Martin as Sandy Cassell or Sandy Woods. Susie Anderson's in it, plays Barbara Ferguson, and it's got another great supporting cast. And this one's about accused of a hideous crime they did not commit. The members of two rival gangs, persecuted by a bloodthirsty lynch mob, take refuge in an abandoned fort. They are accompanied by two hostages. The fort is surrounded by the sheriff and his mob, and 15 scaffolds are erected in front of the entrance gate. Several people die on both sides during the siege. Finally, a fire breaks out, and the men fleeing from the flames are shot by those waiting outside the fort. But then the young man who organized the posse in the first place, too late, discovers who is really responsible for the crime. So this is a Greek tragedy, basically, Clark.
Yeah. So when I spoke to Craig about this one, he remembered Malasoma as being quite an old guy, quite an old director, who was using the Western genre as a bit of a springboard to revitalize his career. It turned out to be his last film. Now, Malasoma's quite interesting because he started his directing career in Germany during the Weimar Republic, and he stayed on during the Nazi period. But I really don't know much about his movies from that period. There's a really great cast. George Martin, Susie Anderson's dubbing artist, does the most outrageous Scottish accent. There's Aldo Sambrel, Jose Manuel Martin as a top-hatted Bible-spouting sidekick. Yep. But at that point, the spaghetti westerns were at their peak of production and quality, and Stelvio Massi is the cinematographer. And he makes great use of the topography of Almeria. It's a really good-looking film.
Yep.
Now, Craig Hill and George Martin were good sparring partners, and they acted opposite each other in quite a few films. And Craig said that during this film, he and George Martin had a fight, and for some reason, they mistimed something, and Craig nicked the top of George Martin's nose and broke it. So that's a little bit of trivia from the movie.
Yeah. Wow. Let's not forget the bodies hanging from the gallows.
Yeah. It's a very dark, very dark film. I mean, it's about lynch law to a certain extent. So there's quite a lot going on. The only thing I think is that there's a lot of characters to keep track of, and perhaps a little bit of editing in the script could have helped. But yeah, I really enjoy it. It's a fine film. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Oxbow incident in the case that they hang the wrong people,
Yeah.
And then at the end they find out their mistake, but it's too late.
Or hang them high, Tom. They're obsessed with hanging in this film.
Yeah,
that's right.
Or many American westerns, from early American westerns. There are lynch mobs all over the place. Yeah. Can't move for them.
Right. So as a follow-up, he had another great film, probably my second favorite Craig Hill film, and that's I Want Him Dead.
Yeah, this is my favorite. L'Avoglio Morto, I Want Him Dead, 68, Italian-Spanish, directed by Paolo Bianchi. This stars Craig Hill as Clayton, Leah Massari as Aloma. Our favorite Jose Manuel Martin plays Jack Blood. Andrea Bosick plays Malik. And Alicia Calderon plays Marisol, or she's known as Maria and Marisa in different prints. Nearing the end of the American Civil War, two gunmen on Malik's payroll rape and kill Clayton's sister, Mercedes. Clayton's search for vengeance converges with plans to prolong the war by assassinating two generals who are meeting to discuss peace terms. Jack Blood is the man set to carry out these plans, and Clayton's pursuit of him leads him into deeper and more difficult waters. One of my favorite shots is in the beginning when they're camping, Clark, on the way to the town. He sees the reflection of a guy trying to assassinate him in his coffee cup. It just blows you away. Some of the creative stuff that the Spaghetti Westerns did is just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the absolute best Craig Hill Western role, best Western movie. In the same year, Bianchini made God Made Them, I Killed Them with Dean Reed and Gatling Gun with Robert Woods. But for me, this is the best of those three, I think.
I agree.
It's got the background of the Civil War with that sort of vengeance theme, and it sort of becomes one of the spaghetti western's best revenge movies because it adds in that extra historical layer. So it has a lot of substance to it, this film. Craig is particularly good here and particularly ruthless. And there's one scene which is very, very memorable where he's riding through this sort of desert scape with these wounded soldiers, and you can hear the Civil War in the background. It's very, very atmospheric. And the final sequence has quite a lot of noirish aspects to it when the gang that Hill are pursuing all turn on each other.
Right.
And I can't, I don't want to give any more spoilers away, but if anybody hasn't seen I Want Him Dead, it's the next one to watch. It's a great spaghetti western.
The other thing is he keeps getting deeper and deeper into plots as he moves along. His vengeance teams him up with the two women. That becomes another plot line. Then he gets involved with the Civil War and the peace efforts, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That he's a part of.
And there's quite a strong role. It's Leah Massari, I think, as a Loma, she's called. It's a very, very strong female role, actually, for spaghetti westerns. So it's worth seeing for that.
Yep,
definitely. So let's move right along to Craig Hill's next spaghetti western, and I call it Three Crosses Not to Die. I know you guys have it listed as something else, but great poster. It's actually a not bad film either.
Nice one.
Called Three Crosses of Death is an English title, and No Graves on Boot Hill.
That's the other title.
68 Italian, directed by Willie S. Regan, which is Sergio Gironi, always a good director. Stars Craig Hill as Jerry, Evelyn Stewart, Dolores, Ken Wood again as Reno, Jean Louise plays Rod, Peter White plays Paco. And this one is about three gunmen are in jail with them is a Mexican boy, Francisco Ortega, condemned to death for a murder he did not commit. One night, the three are mysteriously released with the task of discovering the real culprits with a reward of $30,000. Take it away, Clark.
Yeah, so you've got these sort of three misfit characters put together. One's a Lothario, that's Craig Hill. One's a bounty killer, that's Ken Wood. One's a horse thief, that's Franco Corbianchi. Right. And with Girone directing, they're referred to as sinners a lot in the plot, and so they are assigned to prove the innocence of this man accused of rape, which is going to be their redemption. It's smartly directed. There's some nice visual tricks from Girone, including one shot where he has like a miniature, like a gallows in the foreground, and then we see it's just a miniature in a man's hand.
Yeah, right.
There's lots of little things like that to keep you entertained visually. The last reel of the film is really satisfying and unexpectedly poignant, and it's a good second-tier spaghetti western. And anyone who likes Girone should see it. I spoke to Craig about this, and once he remembered which film I was talking about, he remembered Girone and said, "Oh, he's a good director." So yeah, so I got something out of Craig on that one. Some of them he remembered far more than others.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So
okay. Well, then he followed that up with yet another great film, And the Crows Will Dig Your Grave.
Indeed.
Yep, I corviti scavaranno la fossa, and the crows will dig your grave, or the buzzards and crows will dig your grave. 71 Italian-Spanish co-production, directed by John Wood, who's Juan Bosch. Craig Hill plays Jeff Sullivan. Fernando Sancho's in it as Pancho Corrales. Maria Pia Conte plays Susan. And Ivan Sassiola plays Donovan.
Tom, who does John Belushi play right there?
That's it's our buddy Fernando Sancho.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Playing John Belushi.
Right.
So we've got Wells Fargo hires an army of gunmen to protect its gold shipments and apprehend bandits. This leads to trouble when revenge and bounty money come between two of the agents. So Clark can fill us in on Craig's role in this one.
Yeah. So it's an interesting film. Actually, it's much better than I expected it to be. It's got a nice Bruno Nicolai score. It's the end of the Civil War. There's an increase in banditry. So Wells Fargo are hiring these bounty killers to track down Glenn Kovacs. And there's a rivalry between Craig Hill's Jeff Sullivan and Pancho Corrales, played by Fernando Sancho. Craig looks great in this film. He's got a great outfit, and he's starting to look a little bit more weathered. So he's about 5 years down the line now, aren't we? This is 71, I think. So it's about 6 years since he's been in Europe here. It's a lot better than another Juan Bosch film that we're going to come across later on. It's a very serious film with very few cheesy wisecracks. And the film does start to focus halfway through on the half brother of Kovacs, the guy called Dan Baker, who's played by Angel Aranda, who is one of the brothers in the Hellbenders, and it's a really great performance from him. So it sets up a bit of an odd couple buddy movie between Craig and this chap Kovacs. So it starts off as a tough guy movie. It becomes very introspective. It's a small Western, but it's a really good surprise. You know, it's a good film to watch.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bit of surprise too, because Fernando Sancho has always looked as like a comedy relief type outlaw, and he's pretty tough in this one. He plays it straight. Yep.
Yeah, and particularly cruel.
Right.
Yeah, his method of dealing with things is very particularly violent. So,
absolutely. And let's move on to our next spaghetti western, which is the first one, I guess, about a killer drum.
I think it is.
Drummer of Vengeance, also known in the UK as an eye for an eye, and Doomsday, also Day of Judgment. It's a 71 British-Italian co-production, directed by Robert Paget, Mario Gariazzo, and it's got quite a cast. Ty Hardin plays the stranger. Rosanna Brazzi's in it as the sheriff. Craig Hill plays a guy named O'Connor. Gordon Mitchell's in it, plays Deputy Sheriff Norton. Rosalba Neri's in it. I mean, the cast goes on, and it's about the stranger is out for revenge after his wife and child are killed and his home burned. He hunts down the gang using his son's toy drummer to signal the shootout while he continues his search for the ringleader. I always found it very interesting because the drummer, he sets up outside of somebody's hotel room or whatever. They come staggering down and find coffins in the street. It's very atmospheric as far as I'm concerned. Clark, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a film that could have been better, but you're right, it is atmospheric, and one of the things that gives it the atmosphere is it lifts lots of musical cues from the Hellbenders soundtrack,
right? Yep.
Which is quite a melancholy soundtrack, so that really works. So yeah, he uses this toy drummer who looks like a demented Ronald McDonald, like
exactly
to signal these gunfights. And when I was watching that, I did think, well, this is only going to work, Ty Hardin, if everybody's playing fairly. You know?
Right.
You know, if that guy's not going to wait for it to stop, then you're curtains. So yeah, it was quite unusual. There's a few scenes that are not very well edited. The premise is excellent. In one scene, Ty Hardin adopts the disguise of this sort of 60s freak as a gravedigger, this sort of hippie gravedigger, which is really unusual, with tinted shades and everything. Gordon Mitchell, brilliant, one of the great spaghetti western faces. Craig Hill remembered Mitchell very well, saying that he was a really fierce looking but warm-hearted guy, but he couldn't remember working with Ty Hardin at all. And I think they do share one scene. Craig turns up as O'Connor, and it's quite a small role as a traveling entertainer with the world's lamest Wild West show, which gets hijacked by the lead character. It's not a bad performance, but it could have been better written, and perhaps it could have been a bit more eccentric, because as we see, as we move on, Craig was getting quite good at eccentric roles as well.
Right.
He wasn't. That wasn't something that he couldn't do either. I quite like it. Some of the timing's a bit off. So he arrives at the house is burnt down, the family are dead, and then all of a sudden he's killing everyone. We don't find out till later in the film that he's killing everyone 2 years later. So how he's found out who committed the murders, I've no idea. It just seemed I've no idea what happened in those 2 years to make him realize.
I agree. Like you said, it's not edited very well, and the story, the plot line bounces.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame because it's a film that could have been really great, but yeah.
Kind of reminds me if Craig Hill did a Miles Dean movie.
Yes. Yeah, well, later on there is a film as though Craig had done a Miles Dean movie, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, let's move on to In the Name of the Father, The Cult, and Tom Betts.
Indeed.
Also known as The Masked Thief. This one's a little bit unique. You don't have the poster, I guess, of the of Nucia Cardinale, but Clark and I laughed at that one because it looks like a crime movie or a giallo, and she's got the 1950s bra that stick out like bumpers on a car.
Well, here Craig Hill is like Django in the window here.
She's got the Jane Russell sort of bra,
the Jane Russell
and the tight sweater, which is this doesn't appear in this movie.
Doesn't appear in the film at all. It's like that's the only picture they had of her was from that, so they put her in a poster.
Yeah,
kind of looks like Sylvia Crystal from Emmanuel.
No, there you go.
Yeah.
But 1971 Italian-Spanish co-production directed by Frank Bronston, who's Mario Montero. Craig Hill actually plays two characters in this. He plays Sheriff Bill, or Jeff Nolan, and Mace Cassidy. Nucia Cardinale plays Mrs. Clarissa Nola. Frank Brana plays Judge Finley. Agata Liss is in it. Paco Sands. And it's basically twin brothers. One, Bill. Jeff Nolan is a sheriff. The other, Mace, a ruthless outlaw and rapist. The sheriff is investigating a series of murders during Halloween festivities. So he's always covered with a mask, carried on by a hooded killer wearing a mask. The sheriff, in turn, is arrested and accused by a father and daughter of rape and as the leader of a gang of thieves. In reality, it turns out to be his evil twin brother, Mace Cassidy. In the end, the real murderer is unmasked and the twins meet for a final showdown. I think they meet in a cave, don't they, Clark?
I don't recall that they meet in a cave, but I thought they just met in the town.
It was that dive bar called the Cave.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, this is an odd film, but I really enjoy it. This is one of the best examples of poverty row, low budget schlock in Italian cinema. So you've got it's one of my favorite oddball spaghettis. Bianchini turned out. It's Bianchini. Is the director Mario Bianchini, or have I got that wrong? Yeah. So he also directed Kill the Poker Player and Fast Hand to Steal My Name, which are a couple of odd spaghetti westerns as well. And at times, this film's got quite a queasy atmosphere. Craig playing these two parts. One's the straight sheriff, and the other is really creepy, unpleasant guy, and he's good in both roles.
Right.
Actually. So. Yeah, I think the climax takes place in a sort of a masked Halloween ball.
Okay.
So as well as the Craig Hill characters, you've got the guy with the leather mask as well, who's also very.
Isn't that where he looks like Zorro, doesn't he? In that little bit.
Not really. It's more like a leather mask that doesn't move when he speaks. Oh,
that's right. Okay.
Almost like a mannequin type mask.
I thought Craig Hill looked like Zorro in one film that I can't remember, that he wore like the black mask and the hat. Anything come to mind?
He wears the black hat as Mace Cassidy in this, but he doesn't wear the mask.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I think. Yeah, I don't think he
could have swore he did. I'm maybe confusing with an actual Zorro movie.
Yeah.
Which is weird because those are banned as well.
All right. At the end of the film, there's a good punch up, but there's a stunt double used for Hill. Now Hill, in quite a lot of his films, does his own fight scenes, but I think for this one, the stuntman's got really quite long hair, so the whole thing doesn't match. But I think they're fighting against like loads of craggy rocks, so they probably did.
That's the cave scene I was thinking of. Is the rock fight? Yeah, the fight in the rocks.
Yeah, there's a rock fight and a fight on the rocks, and I think they probably were just keeping Craig safe, so they removed him and sort of replaced him with this long hair to do the fight scenes.
That's cool.
But it's a really enjoyable film. I mean, it's trash, but enjoyable trash.
It's not
like White Comanche with Shatner, where he plays twins.
It's not like White Comanche. So
completely different.
I think the Spanish title is it Mascara de Cuero, Mask of Leather, or something. The Spanish
La Mascara de Cuero.
Yep. Mask of Leather.
The new cologne from Craig Hill.
Yeah, the new cologne from the Spaghetti Western podcast, Mask of Leather.
So let's move along, which I find very interesting.
We're gonna go through this one real quick because we talk about it several times.
What I thought was interesting.
Yes.
When I was doing a little bit of research for this show, because I know this would be one that you, Clark, and Tom, for this show particularly, we're going to give most of the info. But what I thought was interesting was near the end of his career, he just made a ton of films with Vasily Karas. What's that all about?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Tom, do you want to give the synopsis for this one?
Well, yeah, I'll do it real quick because this is the one that he basically.
Tom's.
Craig walks out of this thing about 3/4 of the way through, but it's a clever sharpshooter Bill and his dim-witted buddy Johnny bicycle into Silver City to participate in the annual shooting tournament. Usually corrupt rancher Forrester, which is Hill, usually wins. But this time he's beat by Bill, and he's not happy about it. Bill wins $500 in a night with the beautiful saloon dancer Yvette, who's really a doctor but can't get any medical work in town. Since Bill and Johnny have already gotten in the way of Forrester, they decide with a little help from Yvette to try and free Silver City from his grip.
Right. So this is mostly a Vasily Karas film trying to do the Trinity type of poster there.
Exactly.
But it says, and with Craig Hill at the very end. So I take it he's not in this one much.
Well, I think what may have happened here is that he may have been signed up. It has the feeling of a film where the bigger name has been signed up for a 3-day shoot. And then after 3 days, he went home, and because his final scene, or the scene that should have been his final scene, is just a bit of an anticlimax, really. So they probably just run out of time on him.
Yeah, it could be. Could very well be.
It has that feeling. The film itself is a real dud.
I think Vasily's trying to do his best Thomas Millian impression here.
Yeah, what this is, it's a buddy movie, a bit like the Hill Spencer ones. Not as good. The Hill Spencer are a good comedy act, actually. This guy, so he's he's cycling on a penny farthing, dragging Vasily Karas along, obviously doing the sort of Trinity bit. The only fairly interesting things in this film is that Karas's sidekick is played by I think it's Omera Capano, who has, can you confirm that, Tom? I think he has over 300 credits, mainly as a stunt performer. But anyone who knows the Fernando De Leo mafia movies will recognize him as the guy with the nervous
Omera Capano, right, plays Johnny.
Yeah, that's right. So he's Karas's sidekick. But mostly he was a stunt man, and
that's right.
The only other place I've really seen him in any sort of main, significant role were in the De Leo mafia movies.
Okay. So this one seems to be captivating all three of us.
Yeah, so, it's not a great film. The jokes aren't very good, and it's just generally a bit dull. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we usually move right along from those. We probably gave that film too much anyway. But let's move right along to the next film, My Gun, My Horse, and Tom Betts' Wallet.
This is one of my favorite titles, My Horse, My Gun, Your Widow. Also, another English title is I'll Come Tomorrow to Greet Your Widow. Directed by John Wood, which is Juan Bosch. Craig Hill plays Dr. Janice Saxon. Claudia Lang is in it, plays Deborah Page. Chris Huerta as Carrasco. Carlo Gatti as Carrasco's henchman. And Richard Melville plays Dog. His real name is Rosario Borelli. So you can see by the cast, it's sort of a comedy. Doc Saxon and his gang rob the Crown City Bank, but are double-crossed by Carrasco, a Mexican bandit, who steals the gold and leaves Doc and Donovan with nothing.
Yeah, this film, unlike the other Juan Bosch film that we discussed earlier on, this one's got a really wildly conflicting tone, so it can veer between hard-boiled and just this sort of wisecracking comedy that you'd start to get at this time. It's also shot in the sort of nondescript green landscapes, as though the film crew had just driven off the motorway and set up. You know, it doesn't look particularly great. One thing that's really odd is that I think Claudia Lange plays a Deborah Page. So all the guys are double crossing each other. I mean, the whole film is about double crossing, and then this character Deborah Page, she matches the guys in their double crossing, and the guys have this recurring catchphrase, which is, "Okay, never trust a woman," and even though they've been double crossing each other, it's as though the script writers had a really bad breakup or something.
Yeah.
So it's not a great film. It's not the worst film, but
so these are the type of low-end brow comedies you were talking about that he was making near the end of his film career.
On the whole, he would be sort of guesting in those. But this one, he's the lead in this, isn't he? But on the whole, it appears that he was guesting in these sort of lowbrow comedies. Yeah,
I am noticing, though, it is special in one regard, and you're saying, what the heck is that, Jay? It seems to be the third actor that I've noticed that has Maria as a middle name, Pedro Maria Sanchez. So we have Gian Maria Volante, Enrico Maria Salerno, and now Pedro Maria Sanchez. Yeah. So we can do a show on those three guys.
Maria.
Middle name's Maria.
We'll have Johnny Mathis sing Maria at the beginning, yeah.
There'll be a lot of Italian and Spanish guys with Maria as second name. I mean, as you know, Catholic, there's a Catholic name. Maria will be in there in many of their names.
Well, the next film in the over of Mr. Hill is Return of the Holy Spirit. Tom, what do you know about that one?
These are very confusing, and Clark's going to have to help me out here because there's 3 of these Spirito Santo films with Vasily Karas plays Spirito Santo. This one's also named And His Name Was Holy Ghost, Watch Your Back, Holy Ghost, and Return of the Holy Ghost, directed by Robert.
Holy Ghost.
Yeah, really, on and on. Director Robert Johnson, which is Roberto Mauri. Again, Vasily Karas plays the Holy Ghost or Spirito Santo. Craig Hill plays the false Colonel John Mills. Remo Capitani's in it. Ken Wood again is in it. And I don't even know if this is the correct plot line because they all sort of intermingle with each other, and trying to separate them when you haven't seen them is difficult. But supposedly a crook masquerading as an army colonel in charge of gold shipments replaces gold ingots with fakes. Spirito Santo is recruited to solve the case and make sure the gold gets through. This is a bit important here because it links with a film we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. Yeah. So go ahead, Clark.
Yeah, so it's one of a few Spirito Santo films that were directed by Roberto Mauri, who also directed an Animal Called Man, so not the greatest comic director of them all. So Karas plays this Spirito Santo figure who's like this charismatic mystery figure, but he's not as sardonic as Garco's character.
Right.
The film also features Jose Torres, Remo Capitani as a flamboyant bandit leader, and Aldo Berti as a member of the bandit gang, whose shtick is to pick his nose and wipe it on other people's duds, which is not it's not funny, is it? Yeah, I think we all agree on that.
And he's called Bogey or Boogie, I guess, or Cat-Cola. I don't know what Cat-Cola translates to.
That's the level of humor we've got. And Craig plays this imposter, Colonel John Mills, this greedy bad guy after the gold. He's solid enough, spars well with Karras. They have a good punch up, but the film suffers from the aimlessness and cheapness of many of these post-Trinity spaghetti westerns.
Right. So his name in the film is Imposter.
No. His name is Colonel John Mills.
Oh, but it's not Imposter Colonel John Mills.
No, he is an imposter. He's Colonel John Mills, an imposter.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just double checking. So let's move on here on our tribute to Vasily. I'm just kidding. Seems like we're doing all his films now.
Really?
Right. Stay Away from Craig Hotchkiss is the next film.
Oh, this one's got
El Dorado.
this one's got a zillion English titles, such as Go Away, Trinity has arrived in El Dorado. Step Aside, El Dorado is coming to Trinity. Run Men, El Dorado is coming to Trinity. Run Men Run. Poker Face, Trinity in El Dorado. Go Away, Trinity has arrived in El Dorado. And Stay Away from Trinity when he comes to El Dorado. Director is Dick Spitfire, which is Aristide Massacre. It's a 72 Italian production. And Stan Cooper is the star, plays Sebastian Seb Carter. Gordon Mitchell plays Jonathan Duke. Craig Hill plays the title El Dorado. Daniela Giordana is in it as Juanita. And it's about the pair of bumbling con men, Seb Carter and Jonathan Duke, wander through the West looking to make a fast buck. Upon hearing of an eccentric, well-to-do recluse called El Dorado, they team up with a band of outlaws in hopes of making a big-time score. Craig Hill is outstanding in this one. Go ahead, Clark.
Yeah. Now, this is a film I always thought was a Vidani film, but that might be because of the Weiser book. And there's conflicting sources saying that it was directed by Vidani. Is it Diego Spataro or Joe D'Amato? But Joe D'Amato lays claim to directing this, so that would make it the first film he directed. It has all the drawbacks of, say, a Vidani film with slapdash direction, soundtrack cues that start at the wrong time. They just come in the middle of the scene, for instance. Extras who seem to be walking around the sets not knowing where they're meant to be. It's probably the trashiest but most fun of these later Craig Hill comedies. Craig is brilliant in it. Absolutely fantastic. He rides a horse with cow horns and a rear view mirror like a motorcycle. And the local peones sort of bow down to him and he sort of spits on them as he goes past. He's sort of the local town despot. He's absolutely crazy. Craig himself said that, you know, he was even crazier than Jack Nicholson was on the set of The Shining a few years later.
Yes.
So he clearly really enjoyed making this film and having this role. Now, what is particularly odd is there's the Sicilius scene has the Stelvio Rossi.
Stan Cooper,
Stan Cooper, his he somehow gets into El Dorado's lair and does like a magic show. Now this goes on forever, this magic show, and Craig Hill is laughing and slapping his thigh like a little child, and it's a joy to watch. And then Stelvio Rossi just holds him up at gunpoint anyway. So you do think, well, what was the magic show about? You know, you got in, you may as well just have drawn the gun and robbed him. But
it's like a Vidani movie to fill time. Let's do this whole magic show.
It's like a Vidani movie, but more fun. And it's the soundtrack so bizarre because it has this sort of these bongo sort of tracks. There's these sort of funky little bongo tracks, and then it goes into sort of prog rock freakouts, a bit like the classic Metallo. So
oh man, we almost made it through the show without a mention.
Almost. It's so bizarre. It's good. It's one of those things. When he rides in when you first see him on that horse, he's got a monocle on. He's looking around almost like he doesn't believe that he's seeing what he's seeing.
Yeah.
You know, so the first time on the set, it's like, what is going on here? He just got this look on his face.
Yeah, it's a really good film. It's the sort of film you'd put on with your friends after a night on the cans. You know, so it's an enjoyable film.
Well, you guys have made it interesting enough for me, I guess, worthy of a second look. I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah. Don't sue us, though. Don't sue us if you hate it, Jay.
Okay. I was going to say, there's a couple, when we were going through the list before the show, we were going to get to Court Martial, but wasn't there a couple films or projects he did? I don't really have, I don't think there's any posters or anything on it.
We can go over them real quick. He did, supposedly, they were going to do a TV series called The Ghost of Jesse James in 1991 in Madrid. Director was going to be Jose Ulloa, and it was going to be 13 episodes at 30 minutes each. And Craig Hill was going to play Jesse James, and also Patty Shepard was in it. But apparently it never made it to TV. It was just talked about. And then the other one we were, Clark and I were going to mention, was a documentary called Aragon, Land of the Western. And I found it on either YouTube or is it called Daily Motion or Daily Motion? Yeah, it's on one or the other. It's in Spanish, but it starts off with Maurice Polio as the narrator. And about half of the way through it, he meets up with Craig Hill, and they interview some of the cameramen and the stuntmen and stuff like that, visit the old sets, and it's set in Aragon, which is Barcelona. And I really enjoyed it. So,
if you can find it, Aragon.
Yep.
Okay.
It's probably 45 minutes long.
And then I guess to top off the last of the Craig Hill's Western-related films would be a great film, Tom. You were bragging about it before the show, Court Martial.
Yeah, I watched it last week. It's on YouTube. As far as I know, it's never been released on DVD or video. I've always heard that it was pieced together. And talking to Clark, we figure it is because the characters come right out of the Holy Ghost movies. Yeah. But it's about when an Army lieutenant is sent on a secret mission, that's Karras, and his contact is shot and killed. He is charged with the crime and court-martialed. He learns he was set up by his commanding officer, that's Craig Hill, and escapes to prove his innocence. Vasily Karras changes his costume several times in this, and they're all costumes that come out of the Spirito Santo movies. And Clark and I figure that the last scene is not in the Holy Ghost movies, that they actually filmed that to put it in the movie to make a conclusion to it. So,
yeah, it's basically Maori Spirito Santo films taken apart and re-edited to tell the story of Lieutenant Clint Warren, which is Karras, who's accused of treason and murder. It's patchy, it's incohesive. It's got some of Hill's best scenes from Return of the Holy Ghost. It's got some of Jack Betts' scenes from He Was Called the Holy Ghost, which was the other Maori film.
Excuse me, he's got this huge mustache on that covers and into the sideburns. Yeah. And when you first see him, you don't even know who it is. And then after watching it for a while, oh, that's Jack Betts. Yeah. Powers.
But you can spot all the costumes that Karras wears in all the Spirito Santo films. So it's basically like a Godfrey Ho type of job on a spaghetti western. All he's done is taken 3 of his older films, cut them up, put them together, and it looks like Craig has separately filmed the final scene to give that story, this new story, a conclusion.
Right. Lots of riding scenes where they ride over and across a meadow, and they follow the horse the whole way, and then the guy following, they follow him clear across the meadow.
Yes.
As filler. Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a real winner that I'll probably pass on.
The print on YouTube by Amogo,
mm-hmm.
it's a fantastic print. I mean, it looks like high def, so it's worth watching.
Sometimes I give a pass if the print is good.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the times I just can't.
It's curious. I mean, it's just curiosity value, isn't it?
Right.
For completists only?
Yeah, I can't think of, I don't know of any other spaghetti westerns where they've done, I mean, you may know, Tom, but other spaghetti westerns where they've just taken other movies and recut them. I'm sure there's 3 or 4 of them out there.
Yeah.
But,
well, we've read so much about this thing for years and years, and no one ever came across it that it was basically, did they really make this thing and release it, or is this just something that they were talked about? And
when we did
complete film.
When we did the Craig Hill issue. I wasn't aware of this one at all. But since then, it's become apparent. Yeah.
Anything in closing about the great Craig Hill?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I think it was that from what I got from him when I was talking to him, he said that he managed to get the last days of classic Hollywood, the golden age of Hollywood. He experienced that, and he also experienced the last days of La Dolce Vita in Italy as well. So he felt very privileged by that. And the other thing I asked him was that whether he had any regrets as to regards his career, and he did say that could have been a lot of decisions that he made, which would have perhaps improved his career or at least improved himself financially. But the one thing that he did do was he took the role in a 1966 schlock spy movie, which was Black Box Affair. And if he hadn't have done that, which wasn't the greatest career move, he would never have met the woman that he loved. And I thought that was quite a soulful conclusion to the interview. It was obviously more important for him to be in love and be in Europe than to perhaps if he'd gone back to America, he could have made more of it. Who knows?
Right. Well, he did have a good career, and he lived a good life, I guess, if you look back.
That's right. He did lots of other little bits in other genres as well, but the spaghetti western was clearly the meat and potatoes of his career from the mid-'60s onwards.
I was going to say my favorite scene, I think it's from 15 Scalpels for a Killer. Is that the one where he comes back to town to get his girlfriend who's a dancer, and he's not welcome? You're not welcome here. Your money's not good here. Is that 15 Scalpels, Tom?
That sounds like 7 Guns for a Massacre.
Oh, okay. Well, he comes to town.
But yeah, I know the scene, yeah.
And all he wants is a drink. And everyone from the bartender to the mayor, you might have been something once, but you're not welcome anymore. And he says, all I want's a drink. And I guess there's some gunfire, and then out comes his ex-girlfriend from the back. Oh, I'm so sorry you're being treated like this. Yeah. And Craig's like, I'm sure you're behind it all. She goes, oh, no. And they try to rekindle their romance. What film is that?
I think it is the one where he goes back to the town.
I just remember I've never seen a guy who was once an okay guy in town, but he comes back a few years later and he's persona non grata.
Right.
Yeah, it's probably 7 Pistols for a Massacre, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so he goes back to the town.
All he wanted was a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's
but anyway,
right.
that's a scene that stands out that I just thought was always kind of odd. Can't the guy just have a drink? But anyway, so there concludes the spaghetti westerns of Craig Hill. And now, Clark, if you'll stay with us for the rest of the show, where I leave and Tom takes over. And no, I'm just kidding, folks.
Oh, don't go, Jay.
Right, I won't. I need to keep the decorum here going.
Yeah.
But Tom, is it time for Book of the Week?
Book of the Week, go ahead.
Hold on, I got to do the intro the way Tom likes it. I got to set it up, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for Book of the Week with all 3 of us. But let's do the intro in 3, 2, 1.
I was out in the garage this week and came upon a bunch of stuff that we've covered some in the past, but I wanted to get caught up. The book of the week I've got this week is a paperback called The Magnificent Strangers by Brett Halsey. And it's basically a fiction romance type crime novel. Takes place in Italy in the early 60s. None of the people in here go by their names. If you know some of the actors in the genre of Italian films at that time, you'll recognize them in this book by their descriptions. Frank Wolf appears in here and several other ones. If you want to look for it, it's on Amazon, but if you go into a used bookstore, it's usually in the romance section or the Harlequin section. You won't find it under Spy or anything like that because they go by the cover. But it was made in 1978, It's out by Bantam. It's in English, and like I said, you can get it on Amazon. Jay must have gone out for the.
Yeah, I went out for a smoke. Tom, that isn't one of the books that you're in, is it?
No, I'm not in that book.
Which is the title that you're in, that Brett put you in?
Oh, Hell from Texas or something like that.
Or The Louse? What was it called?
The Louse, yeah. I was going to pull those out too, but I didn't, yeah.
Clark, what's your book of the week?
Well, I know you've shown this before, but it would be wrong of me not to.
That's okay.
It. So it's Kevin Grant's Any Gun Can Play.
The Bible.
Again. Of course, yeah. For me, the best book on spaghetti westerns. Beautiful.
Oh, hands down. I'd hate to make our other author friends upset, but this is it.
Yeah. I mean, just the amount of research that he took, the quality of the writing. Kevin's also a great sub-editor, so he knows knows how to edit his books and how to present them properly, and then also the glossary of actors and years of the film releases at the back. Now, I have been given permission by Kevin this week to let the viewers know that there may well be a reprint of Any Gun Can Play on the horizon.
Nice.
When it will happen, I don't know. I think it may. A lot of the updates will be to do with the actors index at the back. So watch this space. We'll keep you informed. Certainly, Kevin will keep you informed. But yes, anyone who hasn't got it, Any Gun Can Play. But please keep your eye out and keep your ears open, because there may be a updated copy of it coming soon.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
It's also because Kevin writes it as a fan.
Yeah, those are the best books.
It's not a theoretical book. It's written by a fan, and he writes it like a fan.
That's right,
yes.
Tom.
Yeah.
So my spaghetti western book of the week is ultra super rare. And I don't think anybody has it except the gentleman who sent it to me. It's a spaghetti western fan from Argentina. And it's not really a book per se, but it was like a 16-page supplement that I think came with, if you bought a DVD or Blu-ray of a spaghetti western from a certain company in Argentina. And it's called the Spaghetti Western Collection, and I'm going to try to find it here right now. And I think it's kind of like an Argentine version of Tom's Westerns all'Italiana. I'm going to show you a screenshot of the cover. That's issue number 26, and I guess they're talking about it's the Dean Reed issue, actually. And what this magazine would do, if I can remove that, you see Keoma on the bottom, Clint,
very nice,
Thomas Million, yeah. Yep. So it's very short. It's a brief 16 pages. It was about 40 issues, and of course it's in Spanish. But if you speak a little bit of Spanish, whatever, I'm sure you can get through it. And it's a great magazine. Unfortunately, I can't. It's not available unless you send me a check for $100.
It says across the front, God creates them, I kill them.
Yeah.
Dios los cría, yo los mato.
Yep.
Okay.
God makes them, I kill them.
And each issue will be about Django, another issue will be about Sartana, and I guess this one's about Dean Reed. It's just a fun little. It's good to see that there are other people, or small-time companies, or an individual maybe, perhaps. I haven't really read the credits, that for its fans of that particular country would put out a kind of Westerns all'Italiana type of mag, Tom. So maybe they owe you some residual pay.
Oh, sure. Send it to me in whatever their denominator
pesos, 5 pesos.
Yeah, right. I mean, I do owe Tom some thanks as well, because going back to the beginning of this podcast, Tom gave me Craig's address originally, among other people. So
private information.
Yeah, other private information. Yes, yeah. like Craig Hill lives here. He is not lanky. That was the sort of thing.
Yeah.
He is not lanky. Is his email at gmail.com.
Beware of the dog.
Yeah.
Right. So let's move on now to another segment. I didn't know, Clark, if you have anything standing by, but we move right on to album of the week. Or is Tom going to do this solo by himself? Do you got anything, Clark?
I don't have any of my plastic with me. No.
CD?
Afraid not.
Okay.
CD?
Okay, just
Not
Tom. Tom,
next
what's
to
your
me.
album of the
we'll
week,
accept
Tom?
it. Album of the week. This is a called a bootleg record.
Oh, we don't say that term here, Tom.
Hills Run Red. This is the only way you could get it, by Ennio Morricone.
Nice.
It was produced in 1978 on the Pooh label, LP 103. This guy was here in the States, but he would make these things up, and I guess because he thought he could put Pooh on there, they would think it was from Japan or China. It's mono, has 16 tracks. It's worth about 50 to 60 bucks. There's the back, and he put it all in Japanese to try and fool the FBI, but they caught up with him, and the IRS shut him down about 10 years after he started making these bootlegs.
Great, Tom. Now you're on that list.
As an owner, yes.
Right. That's a great album of the week. So now we're going to move on to another favorite segment, and Clark, you can go first. It's autograph of the week. What do we got?
Right. I have very few autographs, but I thought I could share this with you. This is Martin Beswick there with the other cast from
Lou Castel and John Maria Volante and Klaus Kinski. Yeah.
And there she is, Martine, one of our great British actresses.
All right. Tell us how you got it. Says to Clark.
Well, this was a film convention, a film fair.
Okay.
When we used to be able to go to London and do those sort of things and meet people and get autographs signed. But I don't have a great deal of autographs, but I just had this really great picture still from a bullet from the general. So most people were getting it to sign the Hammer stuff.
Right,
we call
it Kiensabe.
Kiensabe.
No, just kidding. Anyway, and then my autograph of the week, because we know I am a Spaghetti Western autograph collector of the highest caliber. Just kidding, folks. I do have about 100 of them. 70 of them I got in person. The other 30 were from managers, agents, the sons or daughters of them. I used to hound these Spaghetti Western stars at conventions. Who is this kid bothering me? It's like, whatever, just sign, because one day I'll have a podcast and I'll show them on it. But this one, Tom's an odd one. I think you'll enjoy it. Let's see, where is it? Tom, you ready?
I'm ready.
This is one I haven't put together on a mat yet, because I just recently acquired it from his son, who I got in contact with. Tom, who does this look like to you?
Lionel Stander.
That's right, from Once Upon a Time and Heart to Heart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where does his son live? Does he live in L.A.?
He does. He lives in Pasadena, and someone put me in contact with him. And
At first I was going to say Lincoln, but no, it's Lionel. Yeah, Lionel Stander.
Oh, I do have a Lincoln Tate too, but this is Mrs. Hart. She's gorgeous.
Sorry, I thought you meant actually like Lincoln, the president.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh,
right.
No, that does look like Lincoln, right? And no, he's great in the film. Obviously, he's the bartender in that little, what do you call it?
Once
Hole
Upon
in
a
the
Time
wall
in the West,
where
of course.
Bronson meets.
Oh yes, yeah, he's
Cheyenne.
fantastic.
The way station, I call it.
I remember this one guy. He had a cigar this big.
I was going to say, are there any ash marks on there? Does it smell like tobacco?
No, but I think this was later in life when he was elderly. So I collect
Cool.
Whether you're fourth on the bill, fifth on the bill. If you're in a Spaghetti Western, I find you. And much to the chagrin of these people, actually they do enjoy it. As I said, I didn't get this one personally, but when I do run into a Spaghetti Western star, as Tom will say, they're always more amicable to talk because throughout their career, their Spaghetti Westerns aren't really talked about. So
when we used to run into like Adam West
or Steve Reeves.
Batman, and you bring up the Relentless Four, and their eyes bug out like, holy
Jay, I made more films than the Relentless Four.
A film that I made in Spain,
Yeah.
So those are our autographs of the week.
I got one.
Oh, I forgot Tom. How did I forget Tom?
Staying with the subject of the week, I've got a Craig Hill from Whirlybirds.
From the Whirlybirds. Well, that's it, Tom. To show half a second. Let's see it again. Okay. What does it say? To Tom, get lost?
It says best wishes from Craig Hill.
Now, where did you get that one?
I told you, my friend that owned the Whirlybird got a bunch of them.
Okay, I forgot. Well, there's autograph of the week, folks. And then, of course, our lives would not be complete with a visit. Tom, are we visiting the vault today?
Yeah, real quick. I've got just a couple of things. I don't have
It's the WAI Vault, which was Tom's and Tim Ferrente's magazine back started in the late 70s, Tom, 79, 80?
Yeah, we always go back and forth. I think it was 79 that Tim started.
Okay. And Tom likes to go back and feature, I guess, an issue or a part of it, and how he researched it.
Let me ask Clark, did you keep any of the stuff from your fanzine as far as scraps and folders and stuff like that when you put them together?
Yeah, I do have lots of stills and yeah.
Right. That's what we do for Vault of the Week.
Well, real quick, Craig, Clark, why don't you tell us what your fanzine was called?
It was called Blood, Money, and Vengeance. We only did 8 issues of it. Yeah,
that's really scarce, then, huh?
Yes, yeah, so that's 3. That's the Millian. Then that's we've got quite a lot about Almeria in that one. Interview with Luciano Pigozzi in that one, and then Ivan Rasimov in that one, and then Craig Hill was the one after, and then we did a special on Fernando Sancho.
Isn't that also Sean Todd?
Yeah, Ivan Rasimov was Sean Todd. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
In the Westerns, yes.
Well, cool. I know something. Is it possible to find your fanzine anywhere?
I think probably now, no. Okay. Not that I know of.
I went to Amazon UK because that linked me, but they were blank. They had it listed, but they had no picture or anything else. So,
wow.
Yep.
Okay, Tom.
eBay maybe.
Okay, Tom, take us back to the WAI Vault. Right. What year are we going to?
2005. In 2005, there was the Sergio Leone exhibit at the Autry Museum. And they would pass these out. And as you notice, there's a generic picture of the man with no name. And that ran for July to January, so 05 to 06. They used to have these things in banner form hanging from the light posts all over Griffith Park. And when they were done, they sold them on the Autry store for $35. So I ordered one, and I didn't get it. And then I wrote them, and they said, "Oh, I'm sorry. We've got to find it here someplace." And when they found it, they sent me 2. And that's a picture of what it is. And I've got this hanging on my wall in my bedroom. But it's 10 feet tall.
Kind of looks like Star Black.
That's about it, yeah. And then great. it's got the writing and stuff at the bottom of the top. But just to prove I was there, Jay, you see who that is?
That's great, Tom.
Claudia Cardinale.
Awesome.
She was there for the opening night.
Is that where she told you she didn't think she had a fan base in America?
Yes. Clark, she was there at the opening. They gave her a plate in honor of her coming, and then she disappeared. And so I was talking to the Italian consulate, and she said, I've talked to her for 2 years to trying to get her to come over here, and she says she won't because no one in the United States knows who she is.
Right, only the most beautiful woman in the world.
Shaking our heads. So then a friend of mine came over, and he had a copy of Once Upon a Time in the West, the LP, and had it signed by her. I said, "Where'd you get that?" And he said, "Well, she's over there. She'll sign anything you give her." So we went over and had our picture taken. with her, And,
She's just over there in the corner. No one's talking to her.
Alessandroni
all
was there, and Simi's wife, and a bunch of people like that were there at the opening. It was great.
That's great, Tom. Is anything more from the vault, or is that it?
That's it for this week.
Okay. That's what I do, unfortunately, when I meet these celebrities or spaghetti Western stars at a convention. I never leave their table. And eventually, after 2 hours, they're saying, "You're ruining my business. Can you go away for a few minutes?" Because they have stills to sell.
Yeah.
So, but anyway. So, Tom, I think Clark and I will now sit back as you give us...
it's very short.
Very short. And obits, birthdays...
Just one passing and some birthdays.
Well, it still doesn't matter, Tom. We still play the opening. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the weekly news.
Okay, no books, no CDs, no DVDs, no Blu-rays released this week, but I do have a passing. Giancarlo Santi. Jean-France Jair announced on Sunday, February 21st, 21, the passing of director Giancarlo Santi in Rome. He was 81. Santi was born in Rome, Italy on October 7th, 1939. He began his career as production assistant for Gian Vittorio Baldi and later became an assistant director of Marco Ferreri and also for Sergio Leone. He was the assistant director on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Once Upon a Time in the West. He was chosen to direct Duck You Sucker after Peter Bogdanovich was fired, but the American producers rejected the decision and demanded Leone direct the movie. At any rate, Santi was the second unit director on that film, and he finally debuted as a director in 1972 with the spaghetti western The Grand Duel. Birthdays this week: Karen Dora would have been 83 on the 22nd. Ethan Wayne turned 59 on the 22nd. Marissa Mell would have been 82 on the 24th. Carl May, the author, would have been 179 on the 25th. Buffalo Bill Cody, the original superstar of Italian Westerns, would have been 175 on the 26th. Pascal Petit turns 83 on the 27th. And Rosanna Yanni turns 83 on the 27th. And we want to give a shout out to Robert Woods, who's recovering from hip surgery. He's back. We hope he's back in the saddle soon. He's at St. Joseph's Hospital in Burbank complaining about the food. So he must be well on the way to recovery.
Oh, he's fine.
Yeah.
The second you complain about the food, you're on the road to recovery. We do wish Robert Woods a speedy recovery. So anyway, I just wanted to say, before we move on, that on, I guess, show 40, I'm going to add another special segment to the show, Tom, and that'll be Museum Piece of the Day.
Okay.
Where I'm going to showcase a rare object to art, whether it's a statue or a figure, or a Poudre figure, those small ones, or a large one that I have in my collection. And the museum, hopefully, I'll be able to put online soon. I'm still putting it together, so it'll be like a website of different items, posters, autographs, statues. In the real world, Tom, if I had lots of money, I would actually open up a brick and mortar museum, which would be awesome. We'd have coffee and donuts while looking at posters.
Well, Fry's closed this week, so maybe you can buy a
Tom,
Fry.
that should have been in your obit.
Fry's was an electronic warehouse, Clark, and they were big.
Right. Fry's
and they
Electronics
closed all their
was the
stores
biggest
this week.
electronics store in the United States. They had, in the Burbank one was their mothership, where they actually had a huge UFO built inside the outdoor of the building. So when you went through the door, it was like you were on Mars. Great stuff to find electronics. Sadly, due to the
pandemic,
to the situation we're in, another place closed. As did Soup Plantation, Tom, my favorite place for
really?
soups and salads.
I didn't hear that. No,
all
I didn't hear that.
135 places. No more pea soup with vegetables in them, Tom. But anyway, I'm so glad we got off topic. But we want to thank the one and only Clark Hotchkiss for joining us. Anything you're working on? You want to plug your other podcast that you're doing?
Well, yes, Blood Money Inventions has sort of has found a new lease of life with a podcast channel that we have on YouTube. So please take a look at that. We're not anywhere near as prolific as you guys. We're usually about, I don't know if that's possible. We usually do something about every 6 weeks, but
that's what we should do. I think we should follow your course of action.
But yeah, we try and get left field subjects and then cover about 6 or 7 movies around the subject. So
and you've had some great guests. Who have you had on the show in the past?
Oh, we have Kevin Grant has done it with us, and I'm also Kevin Lyons, who has his own website and which is the Encyclopedia of Fantasy Film and Television. So he's more of a horror movie expert.
But it's nice to see. It's nice to see his aspect on these films.
That's right. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're talking to someone who's not a big spaghetti Western or Western fan or into it to get a different point of view.
Yeah, and he's good. He has good insight on cinema and a lot of knowledge. So it's it's really good fun.
Awesome. Well, everybody check out that podcast on YouTube. After you watch ours, you can watch Clark's.
Thank you.
So I just want to thank you once again, Clark, for joining us. And it's been an honor to have you here. Great Craig Hill information, a lot of stuff I didn't know. I don't know if that's too difficult, but I personally enjoyed it. I was reading some over the fan comments. They did appreciate it as well.
Good.
And
that's great.
So thank you very much. Tom, anything in the oven? You got a pizza or some spaghetti?
Yeah, pizza's coming. Mike went to pick it up. So.
Oh, okay. Anyway, Tom, do you want to enlighten the guests who our guests will be next week?
Well, we're trying to get Wild East on, Ali Lamage and Eric Miche. So Eric's interviewed a bunch of people for the Westerns All Italiana fanzine over the years. Alec was a huge collector of videos early on and saw a ton of spaghetti Westerns in New York City where we didn't get to see them at all in other parts of the country, but they would show them there twice a week. So he saw stuff that we never got to see. And then they started Wild East and have released 70 or so DVDs, Blu-rays.
Okay.
And it'd be interesting to talk to them on what they know, what they've seen.
Yeah, we can also try to noodle them to find out what releases are coming out in the future.
They won't tell you.
That's basically what I want to know.
They won't tell you.
They won't tell me, no matter how much you bribe them.
Yeah.
I do the liner notes, and I know 6 months, 9 months ahead of time.
You don't even know what DVD you're doing the liner notes for.
Well, the only one that they've asked me to do was a Gemma, and it was Eric the Conqueror. I had never seen Eric the Conqueror, and I couldn't find it on YouTube, so I watched
isn't that
trailers.
a Cam Mitchell movie, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. I tried to put it together, and I sent to Eric, and I said, please look at this and change whatever you need. I've never seen this
I think that's a Bava film, if I'm not mistaken.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you everybody out in Facebook and YouTube land. Once again, please subscribe and like on the Facebook page and on the YouTube page. And also go to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and follow us there. We're slowly putting up all the episodes. Well, not all, but like the best of, like a compilation of some of our, I don't know what you can say with the best. They're all the best, but it's just the ones where Tom doesn't swear.
Yeah, right.
Right. So anyway,
or your mic doesn't go out, yeah.
Right, or the mic today, I don't think my mic went out.
No.
So this is a first after 39
2 episodes.
Clark, we got to have you on every week.
I was going to say, Jay, the boys, you're doing well. You're doing well.
Awesome.
I was impressed today.
Excellent. So thank you, everybody, for watching the podcast. And it's always available on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Anchor, and Apple in case you missed it live. So for Clark Hotchkiss and the great Tom Betts, Tom, what do we always say?
Adios, amigos.
We say adios. Clark, how do you say goodbye?
I would say ciao, amigos.
Ciao. I was going to say, Tom would say, never can say goodbye. Okay. Everybody, adios.
You're off with church this week.
Adios, compañeros, and we'll see you next week on the Once Upon a Time in Spaghetti Westerns podcast.
Adios.
Adios.